Hi everyone, this is Dave, and in today's video I want to talk to you about the new Apple announcements that were made at their Worldwide Developers Conference 2017 keynote. Now they crammed so much in fact this was one of the fastest paced keynotes that I've ever experienced from Apple. They skipped over all of the boring stuff and jumped straight into the new software and product announcements. And I'm going to do the same. I'm going to cut it up into bite-sized segments so I can cover it in as much detail as I can, but really focusing on what I picked out as being important to me. If you like this video, please do hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe as well, because I publish a new tech video pretty much every single day. Now, one of the first things that caught my attention was the new watchOS 4. Now, I wear an Apple Watch. I will be honest with you, when this was first announced, I was not a big fan of it. And even when the Series 2 was announced, I wasn't a massive fan either, but I've grown to love it and I really do like the Apple Watch. And watchOS 4 takes things to a new level with a new user interface and a real focus on fitness and health. Now, of course, fitness and health have been features of the Apple Watch from day one, but they're giving you much more control. And I really do like the fact that they are focusing on fitness. When this was first announced, I did in fact say in quite a few of my videos that I wish they'd done a fitness tracker instead of doing a smartwatch. And now this is really honing in on the health and fitness capabilities of this device. Next up is a device that I must have missed being talked about during the keynote, and that is the MacBook. This is Apple's Ultrabook, the one with just one USB-C port on it. And this has had some sort of performance improvements. So it's now more powerful than ever, 20% faster with a new 7th generation Intel Core M3, i5 or i7. So it's running on Kaby Lake. And it's also got up to 50% faster when it comes to the solid state drive. So this is a really nice little laptop, perfectly capable of editing full HD video, 4K video in a really compact package. Next up, Apple also updated their MacBook Pro line of laptops. Now, I personally use a 15-inch MacBook Pro, the one with the touch bar that was announced just last year. Now we're moving on to Kaby Lake processors, much faster graphics performance, faster SSD performance, and I'm sure that Apple also mentioned that these support more RAM. But when configuring these currently on the Apple Store, they're still only showing that they can support a maximum of 16 gigabytes of RAM. Whereas I was pretty much convinced that these new MacBook Pros do in fact support up to 32 gigabytes of RAM. Comment down below in the comment section if you've got any clarification on this. And then we all love the iMac, Apple's desktop computer with the gorgeous display, either a 21.5-inch 4K display or a 27-inch 5K display. These have now been made even brighter, even faster, updated with Kaby Lake processors. They now also come with the Fusion drive as standard and better support for more RAM and better graphics performance as well. And then the surprise came in the form of the iMac Pro. Now, this is not available yet. This is going to be available later in the year or possibly early 2018. This is a real powerhouse of a Mac with up to 18 cores of processing power. If you're going to be editing video in 8K in the future, this should definitely be of interest. Now, I quite like the fact that they announced a new iMac Pro, and I sort of liked it for a little bit of a selfish reason. I currently use a Mac Pro for all of my video editing and felt that that had sort of been forgotten. About a month or so ago, we had some insight from Tim Cook that there was going to be a new Mac Pro being launched next year, currently in development. And if this iMac Pro is anything to go by, the new Mac Pro is going to be absolutely amazing. Now we'll talk a little bit about software. macOS on our desktops and laptops, currently called macOS Sierra. Now, when Apple covered this during the keynote, they said that they'd come up with a fantastic name for the new operating system, macOS Hi Sierra. And I initially thought that this was a joke. But in fact, it is going to be called macOS Hi Sierra, a new file system in place, which is absolutely fantastic, a new standard for video compression, a new standard for JPEG compression as well. and it just looks absolutely fantastic. They've really refined the operating system to bring more consistency across our devices as well. And we've also got Metal 2, which is going to improve graphics performance, especially within games. They're really just taking their time to make the desktop and laptop operating system as good as it can get. Now, I'm not heavily into VR or virtual reality, but Apple did touch on this twice during their keynote speech. And the first time was, of course, with macOS Sierra. We've got support for pretty much all of the virtual reality platforms, and that in combination with Metal 2 is going to bring a really amazing VR experience to the Mac. There was also updates to the apps that are baked into macOS, things like Mail and Photos. Very, very nicely sort of updated for this new release. And there's also an update to Safari. Apart from the normal performance increases we get, we've also got an automatic blocking system for autoplay videos, which might sound like a very small thing, but for me that's a really welcome addition, because on numerous occasions I've browsed websites and been sort of disturbed by an autoplay video. Now, I'm saving my personal favourite 2 announcements until last, and I'm going to skip right to the end of the keynote when Apple did a sort of one more thing, and that was the announcement of HomePod. Now, we'd heard rumours about an Apple Siri type speaker being announced at this keynote, and in fact they did give us a sneak peek. It's not going to be available until later in the year at $349, which I personally think is too expensive, and that's probably going to equate to either £329 or £349 in the UK. I think it should have been around about $100 or £100 cheaper. But what HomePod is essentially is a smart speaker, and they're really concentrating on giving really good audio performance. So think of something like the Sonos or maybe a Bose speaker, and combine that with something like the Amazon Echo. We've got really amazing quality audio. You can also combine more than one speaker together for an even better audio performance. And then you've got this 6-array microphone built into the speaker, so you can interact with it through Siri. And this can be done for controlling your music, or in fact for just asking it questions, setting appointments, etc. Much like we do with our devices like the iPhone, iPad and Apple Watch, and indeed our desktops at the moment. Now, these are my 2 favourite announcements of the keynote. The first one is the iPad Pro. I've been an iPad user for many, many years. Apple announced a new 10.5-inch iPad Pro. The previous smaller 9.7-inch one is now retired, so we've got the 10.5-inch and the 12.9-inch iPad Pro. Better performance again, better displays. The actual display interacts in a much more accurate way with the Apple Pencil. I was a little bit confused. I thought when they said the Apple Pencil was sort of smarter, sharper, etc., that they'd actually launched a new Apple Pencil, but in fact they haven't. It just interacts better with the way that they've actually built the screen on the new iPad Pro. They also said that the performance of the A10X chip inside this tablet is better than a quad-core i7 processor, which is absolutely amazing. One of the things that I really do hope that they develop for the new iPads is a new video editor. Something like a Final Cut Pro for the iPad would be absolutely amazing. Apple, if you're listening, please do make that happen. And now I just want to move on to iOS 11, which is going to be coming to these new iPad Pros and our iPhones as well later in the year. And this is what makes the iPad Pro a really good proposition now, because not only did we get a new file system introduced on macOS Hi Sierra, but we've also got a new sort of file system on our iOS devices, where we can actually gain access to folders both locally and in the cloud, and that allows us to use this in a much more productive way. So instead of our iPhones and our iPads being media consumption devices, I really do think that they can now fully be utilised as media creation devices. Of course, you could draw on your iPad Pro before, but now you can pull things in from other applications so much easier, and the multitasking has really been taken to another level. We've also got this new dock in iOS which resides across the bottom of the screen, much like we've experienced the dock on our desktops and laptops. So now we've got this more unified experience across our iPhone, iPad, MacBook and desktop Mac, which just really makes sense. I think Apple have done a fantastic job with this. Now there was a lot more talked about besides what I've talked about here, but I just wanted to cover off the main announcements and also the highlights for me. Let me know in the comments section below what your favourite announcement was, what new devices you might be picking up. I'm going to be getting one of the new iPad Pros in, probably the 12.9 inch version, so I can bring you my experience of this device, and of course when iOS 11 is launched later in the year, then I'll cover that too. So that's it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. It certainly is an exciting time if you're an Apple user. I'm really looking forward to iOS 11, new iPad Pros, and indeed this new iMac Pro, and what Apple could be planning for the Mac Pro too. I'll see you again soon in another video on the Geekanoids channel.